Hello! As you see before you is a wall of Neil Simons. I'm doing Neil Simon for my inquiry project, so let's dive right into the research. I have books. Two books are literary analyses of his plays that go play by play. One of them is Robert K. Johnson's book, just titled Neil Simon. The other one is Understanding Neil Simon by Susan Koprinz. Both of these books go play by play and analyzing his work, and while there's a lot of analysis, there's not a lot of criticism. Which is interesting in that these two writers both believe that there should be more analysis and critical analysis of Neil Simon. In fact, Robert K. Johnson writes in the preface to his book that he wrote it because he thinks that Neil Simon has been skipped over by many critical analysts. Now, if we look over... Now, I've sorted things into two camps. There's people who are attacking Neil Simon and people who are defending Neil Simon. On the attacking side, there's people like Gerald M. Berkowitz with his article Neil Simon and His Amazing Laugh Machine, where he says right in the beginning that Neil Simon is a critical embarrassment. He goes on to talk about the style and the mechanics of how Neil Simon writes his play, relying on one-liner gags and one-dimensional characters to get laughs out of his audience, but for the most part, it's not directly an attack on him, it's more of an observation of the style. Now, taking a second look at Neil Simon, Is There Something Endearing to Be Found in His Sadly Faded Work by Terry Teachout is more of a direct attack. He's more talking about how these once endearing and once well-received writer Neil Simon is now looking back at his work, realizing that he's a hack. Now, this is could be true as far as Terry Teachout is concerned, but he goes on to talk about how this kind of this writer has faded away in sense of our love for him and his works. Now, moving on, there are people who are defending Neil Simon, such as Understanding Neil Simon from Susan Koprinz. This is an article from Contemporary Literary Criticism by the same name as her book. Now, here she refers to him as talks about his life growing up in a poor Jewish American family. It goes through talking about the way he wrote his plays, and eventually starts getting to a section where she says the critical response to Simon over the last 35 years has been mixed. Some reviewers admire him, some appreciate him, others are faulting him for his weak dramatic structure and reliance on gags and one-liners. This is a common theme. There are people defending him and people attacking him. Susan Koprinz is one of the people defending him, as she's written a book of his critical analysis, and in this article reviewing things. Another defender of his is Helen McMahon, who directly responds to many attacks on Neil Simon's work, such as Jack Kroll, who writes in an article that I desperately struggled to actually find a physical copy of, but I couldn't, so I found this instead. That says Neil Simon is like an annual outbreak of warts. He refers to him as being covered in pigeon droppings. It's very much a direct attack on his style and his work. She goes on to counter that kind of argument, and that's how a lot of these arguments are formed. It's people taking the attacks and countering them with more in-depth analysis and more direct appeals for Neil Simon. The other large group of things that I found were interviews. Neil Simon, The Art of Theater X, being one, an interview with Neil Simon, with Jackson R. Breyer. Jackson R. Breyer, a name that comes up quite a bit. Same with Susan Koprinz. These two people, along with Robert K. Johnson. Those three people come up a lot in my research, as well as some more pop writers such as Jack Kroll and Walter Kerr. Walter Kerr, though, unlike Jack Kroll, being more positive towards Simon and taking his work with more splendor, I would say. This has been the breadth of my research. There's a lot here, but I have a running theme of people attacking, people defending, and I think that there's a lot to work into that about what people are saying about Neil Simon. Thank you.